All right. I think today's day 20. So we'll go with that. My sleep broke up into 2 4-hour periods. I don't know how that's gonna affect today's practice. And I think we're gonna add some rapid mobility in hand to just get our arm warmed up. What I'm doing is I'm just doing this. It looks kind of weird, but generally speaking, when you do this, you tend to warm up and lower. Okay, so we're just gonna move around until we can feel some of the strain before we start. Give it a few seconds to cool down. And let's hope for an auspicious practice session. I liked how inconsistent my back and forths are in the beginning. I'm so sure. My hand skipped a beat there. Hey, PK. What's in your mind today? Alright, we're gonna do the same. Just so we can kind of feel our form. Oh yeah? Do you feel rested? How do you feel? Sounds very cozy. I had a weird lock for like the majority of that on the back. So we're gonna have to try to figure out why that was the case there. Maybe I'm not... I feel like I should be moving this further to the left. Try doing that. I'm gonna try in this position. Alright, that seems nice. What do you plan on doing now that you've rested? Anything interesting? Let's try this again. I feel like that might have just made it worse. The question is, do I prefer the new position? Guess I'll find out. Alright. Sounds like a solid plan. Still think my keypad is gotta go. We gotta replace this keypad. It's too elevated compared to my keyboard. Yeah, I think I want it So how am I? Let's try something radically different. Let's try it if I'm really on top of it. Well, one of my fingers definitely isn't hitting the edge of the other key. I got a little bit more comfortable at some point. I do feel like it's probably a little bit too close. Move it back. Like it centered, so maybe turning the keyboard is not just for. Maybe turning the keyboard is not for me. Here, twice. Where's my And going. Do this one more time. New position. I think it's still somewhat out of alignment. I need to like move it. I do have to move it a little bit diagonally. I was trying to determine if the position of the keypad was affecting how the strength of my the strength of my inputs, and it is. I need to turn it a little bit here. Oh. Okay, let's try moving higher here. And it just comes down to it. This, I need some spacing between these keys. Holy heck. One of the nagging issues that I've had for a while. That the keys are too close together. The keycaps. So after a while, my fingertips start rubbing in between the keys. I can feel the edge hit one of my fingers over time because my striking is not in the center. This doesn't feel comfortable. I'll have to address that in the future. Often feels like I'm overextending the back of my hand. My hand's kind of like a little angle too far up because of the profile. Yeah, it's getting even more uncomfortable. Trying to figure out. Honestly, I'm kind of curious. I wonder how my blue switches feel. Oh, it is substantially more exhausting, but whoops. It's substantially more exhausting, however, its profile lower. It kind of makes it feel nice. There. What if I no? I have to figure this out at some point. Okay. I can't really do sustain. Maybe try doing this. I was trying very hard to get that tighter, but Just not tight enough. It'll be great when I get to rest after 10 more days. So now we're just we're working on maintenance. We're on a plateau, but now we're just gonna focus on maintenance. So that when we do rest, we'll see what happens after that. Looking forward to deloading. What I would really want to really try, I think it's probably a weakness of one of my hands, is I would love to get a neutral clicker. So instead of tapping up and down, I just want to squeeze instead and just have like 2 triggers go back and forth just to see what it's like. That's what's really throwing me off most of the time when we're playing this, is that my right hand is in the neutral position and my left hand is not. So I don't really ever feel like my right hand is in the same position as my left hand in terms of distance from my body. Am I sitting not vert? I'm not quite sure if I'm not even sure if I'm sitting. trying to start on the other finger temporarily. Maybe I'll work on the other finger. Can't do it on the other finger. I figure I had enough sensitivity to do it, but maybe not. I got tighter there, just for like a brief, like 30 seconds. It got tighter. I think our maintenance is probably gonna try to do this a couple times, and then we rest for early. That's willpower, right? Yeah, I've been my overall threshold has been decreasing from day to day, going into the last third. It's very understandable. In general, around at this point, I probably take like a week away from Osu. So in future, we're gonna put in a rest day. I think if we're being safe, the peak was like 2 weeks in, so we would rest after 14 days to reset. Because my upper stamina has fallen off a cliff. Not really off a cliff, just slowly. Oh, that's willpower. Even if I'm pushing like really hard. This stuff and like day 14 was warm up. Oof. Man. It was a big struggle. Really big struggle. Not sleeping well doesn't help either. We'll see how much I can grit. It's unbelievable how difficult it is to stop there and then start again. It's just the shortest amount of time. Man. Without fail. Oh, hey Neo. I've been doing this for 20 days. You know, 20 days straight. It's it's not pleasant. It's very not pleasant. I've reached a plateau pretty around day 15, and it's starting to decline, but I'm trying to do it for 30 days, and then sweet rest is at 30 after 30 days. Probably like, so what I learned from this experiment is that the maximum peak time is 14 days. Oh, I didn't. This is not. This structure does not have rest in it. It's to determine where my rests are. But if you're talking about when I stop, is when I stop is at the edge of fatigue. So, so far what I've discovered by this structure is that 14 days is the peak day. So on day 13 and 14 are the peak days. And then the rest of the day I have been scaling back to meet my when I'm fatigued. So naturally my fatigue time is getting earlier and earlier after 14 days. So in the future, when I do a 30-day program, it would be more of a 30-day active program. So it'd be probably 14 days, then a period, like a 3-day period of rest, and then another 14 days after. It's probably kind of like the way I do calisthenics. I train for 2 weeks straight with no rest days, and then I deload for like 2 or 3 days, and then go back. And then the level would keep going that way. It does appear that it follows the same way for me. But here's the progress. When I first started, I was barely able to finish this. Like, just barely, right? And then now, at the peak day, which was a while ago, that's the plan, to complete the 30 days without rest. So then I know where my levels are. The goal is to reach fatigue. The goal is to reach fatigue each day, but not to push for results. The idea is I'm trying to know where my fatigue level gets to each day, so then I can evaluate that. So keeping the time frame as consistent as possible, as opposed to, but now we're, you know, barely completing this, and then we had some runs, I guess. Like, we at least know how to secure doing triples all the way up to here, right? There's a little bit of weird spacing issue here that has a problem, but you know, we still continued. We haven't ever completed this though. And this is a cheat. It's only 40 seconds. Oh, it's like 50 seconds on, and then there's a 50-second off, and then 50-second on. So that's a different story. And we tried this a couple times. It's not a matter of speed, unfortunately. It's more of a matter of stamina at this point. But yeah, I enjoy doing this stuff, so there's nothing really disappointing about it. I was on willpower like 10. The last 15 seconds was just willpower. I rested for a little bit too long and it felt a little cold. Oops. We gotta wait. Have to wait. I think today the timing feels a little bit better, but not as well as like day 14. This is probably our baseline. It's a shame that I'm not getting... It's a shame the amount of stamina for beginning to end has fallen off. A third of it is just willpower. Hence no accuracy. You know how when someone like walks in the room and they're trying to be discreet, but what they end up doing is slowing down and taking the longest possible to close the door and do it just quickly? So my father has this habit where he needs to access something else and he walks in and instead of just doing it quickly, he slows down to try to be like discreet about it, but it only triples the amount of time he's in my peripheral vision. And that's what was on my mind that entire time. Instead of just bolt in as fast as possible, close the door, do his thing, and then close the door and then just bolt out. It's like the slowest possible way of doing it. So he only triples his time that he's in my vision when I'm doing this. It's a trade-off, but you know what I mean. It's kind of like if you ever sneak down, like sneak down to the kitchen and you're looking for like the munchies, right? But you're trying to be really quiet about it, but it just sounds like everything takes a really long time and you make like so much more noise than just simply swiftly going and just committing to it. Anyways, that was my thought just now. Yeah, see, I'm having trouble with just timing the start. It's like I'm flat fingering. My middle finger is like, the tip of my middle finger is not tapping it. It's like I'm flat fingering the middle finger, and I kind of It would kind of be nice if I had keycaps that were concave. And I think about it. I need to look for a new keypad and something lower. My dexterity is a lot more appreciable today than it was yesterday, where like I could at least hit something for like 10 seconds. Then my middle finger just goes, where's the start? Yeah. I can't believe I can't believe on day 14 I reached almost the end of this. Fast forward 7 days and I've fallen. My dexterity has fallen away because of focusing on consistent spacing. And now I can no longer just drop the weight and commit to tapping as fast as I can. There's too much restraint. Alright. Anyways, I was just curious where I was today. Yeah, I'm like, in my mind, I'm basically telling myself, remember, pick up your middle finger. It's like, I'm counting to myself saying, down 1, 2, 3, down 1, 2, 3, down 1, 2, 3. But my middle fingers sometimes do, down 1, 2, 3, but then it doesn't lift on the 1 fast enough. So then it becomes like, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Like, the 2 and the 1 gets too close together. And then the 1 doesn't reset. And in the moment my cursor moves away, it then starts drifting forward and backwards. And that might be fatigue. That might be attributed to... It would be nice if I was able to even out the stress, but my middle finger does double time. I have to do double the workload. What's the fail screen music? It's the R3 music box for Radwimp song. That was in your name. The Zen Zen song. It's the music box version. Yeah. Yeah, see, the moment I stop, like, my middle finger is no longer synced, I was trying to do something different there. Didn't quite work. I shifted my weight to my pointer finger. So I shift the center of gravity of my wrist a little bit. I tilt it towards the pointer finger, and it was making my middle finger drift faster. So it lifted a lot of the weight off my middle finger, but it kind of made it move a little too fast, and then it kept going to the left, as in I kept getting earlier. I'm trying to just like figure this out as we're going. No, I think the last couple attempts were probably as fast as we can go for today. For that duration. We'll try to get it tomorrow. At least one run of those. There should be cruise mode, but I'm on willpower already. Willpower. Yep, just complete finger lock. That was absolute failure. That was my both fingers stop moving at the same time. Hey, Edgar. How did your session go today? It's a shame my fingers fail before my fatigue sits in. I do see the forearm. It's pretty alright today. We still got 10 days to go, so trying to maintain the same level, you know, at least similar level until the good old end, so we can rest, like truly rest. Today's level was a little higher than yesterday's, which is kind of nice. How do you feel? What are your plans today, Edgar? You know, I just realized, have you ever considered that, or has anyone ever noticed that depending on how you separate the letters in your name, it could mean something very sus? Okay, I just wanted to I wanted to be a little discreet because I didn't want to like make it. Oh, it was here. Okay. So I just wanted to tell you that the only reason I separate your name like that is because I don't want to say it, if you know what I mean. But I wanted to make sure that I wanted to tell you that I see the breakup in your name, and I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page about that. just in case that was not your intent, I wanted to inform you if in case, you know, like if someone else randomly decides, hey, yeah, okay, all right, okay, all right, as long as we got that cleared, because I think it was yesterday, when I saw it, you know, I tend to read into things quite a bit, but I wasn't sure. Oh, okay, fair enough. Alright, as long as we're clear about that. Not sure, I'll grind some skill cap later. I see. Farmed a bit yesterday and got... Oh, congrats on the new top play. Congrats. Always that boost of dopamine. Oh, you realize... Okay. Because I do see, you know, when you read a lot of names, often I don't just jump at the name anymore, because you can imagine the name and then you can imagine putting spaces in between. It's like, where should I separate the syllables? And then at some point you try all the combinations, it's just like, nah, no way, right? But how do I approach this person just to make sure, maybe in case one day someone just gets angry at you and you have no idea? Listen, fictitious. You deliberately that second syllable though, fictitious. You would. you would introduce that second syllable. Oh, we are feeling tired now. We're feeling very tired now. An hour and a half? Yeah, that seems about right. Yeah, see, that's what I mean by, are the triples a consistent BPM, which they definitely aren't with the map BPM. I need to, like, squeeze them together quicker, like this. And not be early as well. We're also doing another experiment where we keep this like UR bar as chungus as possible, but since it's in my peripheral vision, I can't help but stare at it and be very distracted by it. But it's growing pains. Eventually, I'll get used to it. I don't like making mine big for that reason. It's understandable. But I'm doing this for training purposes. I wouldn't play with this gigantic UR bar if I was playing normally. I don't even play with my UI up. Generally speaking. That is a lot of fatigue. Yeah, I'm actually staring at the UR bar when I'm doing this because typically it's just a repeated pattern, right? So, alright, we need to cool down. I clearly can't do anymore, so let's figure out maybe. This seems pretty safe, right? I'm looking at my hand right now. The alternating pattern. Oh, that was weird. I skipped a note there. Uh-oh. Osu's wetting the bed. I just lost a couple of frames there. Twice. Feels bad, man. It's fine, though. We're just cooling down. I don't think I can reach to the end of this. So we're gonna go slower. Let's try this one. Great when someone has filters on a text-to-speech and question why gifting a sub to me triggers the filter. Oh, I see. I see what you mean. It took me a minute to connect the context. Finger lock one very prominent time, but I saw my hand tensing up. Then I kind of adjusted the weight forward in the middle of it. Didn't seem too bad, but it was going slow enough that it didn't really affect it. My hand started tensing up near the end. I need to remember to put my weight forward in my hand. That's the best I've ever done. Although my hand was pretty tense near the end, so that was pretty tense. I don't think I will ever SS this, to be honest. I don't think I'll ever SS any of these, but it's nice to know I can still move my hand when it's really tense. When you cool down, it feels great because you can at least move without the burden of being rushed. Whoops. Finger long. Yep. It's what happens when your finger dexterity is not challenged and there's no stamina cap, right? So you can kind of see the full gradient. When you start cooling down, when you get to a BPM where your dexterity between your fingers are not challenged, and then you also remove stamina cap, you can do it for days. But the problem with doing it for days is you get diminished return on practicing. You're not, while yes, you are becoming more and more consistent doing this, you are getting less and less improvements with the time spent. So typically when you're cooling down, you're doing something to maintain a base level consistency. But at the time when you're warmed up and stuff, you want to be efficiently pushing the edge of your performance. So right now, these are all cooldowns, which when you start, like when you warm up, it looks more like this. But when you cool down and don't have the cap of your dexterity or your stamina, most of this stuff you can pretty much turn your efforts off and just try to relax into it. And the more relaxed you are, the more consistent you become. When I grinded those maps, I just FC once with around and moved on. It's very reasonable. I don't even think you have to go for act. I think just cooling down, you'll get a really nice jolt of dopamine to show how much finger control you have developed over the time. So the problem here is we have three components, right? We have finger dexterity, which most people will call speed, but speed isn't necessarily the only component of finger dexterity. Dexterity also means the timing of the start and the ending of the stop. So that's what I call finger dexterity. And then there's stamina. And then there's finger control, which is a component of dexterity, but it's most apparent when you have no more stamina gates. You're not stamina gated, and you're not finger dexterity gated. You enter the realm of finger control, where it's isolated. So these examples, when you're cooling down, it's a great way to just correct or maintain your basic level of finger control. So these things will, it will feel like low effort, but it's also a nice way to see if your finger control is still in check. So I do this cooldown a lot. And most of these things now are just cooldown. So it wasn't ever about focusing on getting the act. It was just, it's a very nice cooldown ritual to relax a little. So when I play maps, it's the same way. The maps, it ramps up. And then near the end of the day, you kind of get a few plays because you ramp down. When you're ramping down, you're basically in your wheelhouse. And the thing that can fail you is finger control, which means you have too much energy and you have too much dexterity. That's when finger control becomes a hindrance to your accuracy. So when it comes to these things, like the slower the better, typically how I feel in terms of that. So it's another component, but they're all there still, you know, stamina, dexterity, and finger control are there. It's just certain sets will emphasize the dominant property. And if you're way below your BPM, your comfort BPM, and well below your threshold, even like slow TV size maps, that's when finger control shines more. So I'm just doing routines that are highlighting some of my strengths and some of my weaknesses. And cooldown, I'm typically doing things within my strength as opposed to within my weakness. And then I look like a bumbling idiot trying to tap faster. Yeah. And I totally get it. I totally get it. What I'm doing is diminished return. So I'm saying this specifically that when you cool down, you don't necessarily mechanically need it. For me, it's a mental mindset. It's something that I do to wind myself down emotionally and physically. So in the long run, I feel a lot more comfortable. It's not relevant to individuals who don't derive the same mindset, in my opinion. You have to try and see if does it offer something. It doesn't offer progress, mechanical progress. Cooling down specifically is to get you into the mindset of leaving the game or leaving what you're doing for now. It mechanically, physically, it serves very diminished return. Like you get very little it's not for the goal of improving. It's just to give you some good mindset for tomorrow, you know, for the next day. So if your objective is to improve, cutting cooldowns and cutting your comfort practices is absolutely encouraged. If your specific goal is to be efficient and focus on improvement, I cool down not for the sake of these things. So it's just to keep the realism in mind. So you can definitely just skip cooling down. There was a time back in the old days where people felt like, oh, you need to cool down or you need to do stretch to take advantage of your warm muscles, like kind of flexibility and stuff. Yes, if your goal is to increase certain things, but in terms of the workout performance that you're focusing on, that is not how cooldowns work. Cooldowns rarely ever aid your peak focus performance things, but it can be something that helps you be consistent. So you can associate cooldown with your workout. You can associate cooldowns or habits, comforting habits that initiate something else. So it's more of a help you with a state of mind than pragmatism. And I don't know if back in the day in high school when they asked you like stretch, cool down, if that was intended to help you with performance, but by coincidence, it overall does have benefits, but not in the sake of what we understood. At least now with a clearer picture of what we have now in physical fitness, it's very diminishing returns. Kind of like when if you were in gym class, so a lot of times people are like, hey, better stretch, better stretch, like hold stretches and stuff before you work out. That's largely diminished now. It's actually a misnomer. You can stretch after to improve mobility or flexibility. It rarely ever involves enhancing what you're actually working on, like the performance and the getting faster, getting stronger. But it does improve other components that might not overlap with your goals. And in this case, low BPM, no stamina gate, no speed gate tends to be finger control. But a lot of times, that's kind of optional when it comes to the bigger picture. Like most people's focus, their hard gates, the ones that slap you harder, is a speed gate and a stamina gate. Those are far more dominant in terms of their things. And finger control, there's an element of finger control for general play. So over time, you could just play so much that your finger control comes to a level that's sufficient already. You don't have to focus on finger control. Kind of like the misconception that your abs, a lot of people talk about like, you got to do core exercises. You got to target your core. That's with all the piling physical fitness research, generally speaking nowadays, a lot of times people are already consistently activating their core while they're making compound movements, moving about and whatnot, and targeting and working programs specifically around the core comes with extreme diminished returns because your core activation is effectively engaged in many of the activities, many of the workouts. So it is the lowest one, but it's just working out raises its base level. Finger control is my analogous example of core control. You will naturally continue to work on finger control to some extent in all your practices. And finger control's gait is a lot lower than speed, for example. And let's just not talk about speed ever. My speed is pretty much if there's a covet, if there's often a covet in physical fitness, is speed with control, right? It's a very holy grail thing. It's wonderful to be fast and in control. If you try to, it's a little bit of an oversimplification, but when you think about your physical activity, one of the holy grails is to be fast while in control. Like that's like, it's always on a pedestal, but it is realistically one of the harder things to maintain. Meanwhile, I'm like trying to do repeated triples at like 195 in my hand. Like both my bodies completely start shaking. uh, Good stuff. Oops, I started early. Cool down. I am a friend of someone who would absolutely assess everything up to 200 BPM. And it's absolutely unbelievable his UR. It's a thing of beauty. I'm past my physical age where my hand is that steady, unfortunately. Statistically, 97% is where my physical attributes can support. From some people just have them. It's a thing of beauty. If you tell this person that what's even more telling about their ability is that it's very hard for them to appreciate because they keep their base level was so consistent that they feel like their perspective on their own improvement seems very smaller, a lot smaller, but it's unbelievable where their baseline is even before they were trained, before they became trained. Like I don't know. I won't ever know because I can't be young again, right? I don't really know where my internal consistency is when it comes to alternating things. But what I can tell you is I used to play instruments when I was younger, when I was their age, and even then I would use a lot of things to keep myself more consistent. Like I'm a counter. I learn to compensate for my fluctuation in like the challenge. This is far more challenging than to me personally than playing a map that is mapped specifically to various elements in the song, because songs have syncopation. They have what I would say progression, like a flow, like a rhythmic flow, even in vocals. So, even with all this contextual experience that I have as someone who used to play music and perform music, especially in a structured way, I used to play in an orchestra. Um, Trying to do it like a map where you're simply repeating and maintaining a specific speed, it's absolutely bonkers how amazingly consistent someone can be without the context of formally learning music. or like metrics and stuff. Um, what I can say about my experience with rhythm games and Osu is that you may think a lot of times logically, right? This is a sometimes it depends on how old you are, but if you have enough experience as a musician, it will become very apparent that the more you learn about something, the more fundamentals have interference from each other. So, for example, one of the fun things that sometimes Osu players do is if there's like a really popular musician, they would try their sometimes they would try to get the musician to play a rhythm game or play Osu, and you would a lot of times these people would be surprised like, wait a minute, I thought musicians were good with music, they would understand, but you have to understand mechanically that while Osu is elegant in its simplicity, when you ask someone who's been trained specifically in other things, the more they're trained and specialized in that thing, the more interference they're going to experience when they adjust even to the slightest differences. So, like, someone who's gloriously consistent in Osu in the way it is, if you changed it slightly, they will keep that precision, but their accuracy will go to non existent. So, what happens here is that my life, I don't think when I was younger, if I continued playing musical instruments, I still would struggle the same way I am now because a lot of my inconsistencies with my hand and the way I perceive rhythm is interfering with how I can do this. Like, for example, this song, you'll realize when the music crescendos, when it gets louder, when it builds up, the interlude fades, and then the bridge happens, you'll see that my hand naturally speeds up and slows down depending on the perceived tempo and weight of the song. And this stuff, that's why I use training maps instead. It's trying to get me to decouple what I feel about music to the map. It's forcing me to stay on time, stay in a fixed position, but it's the hardest task I have. Yeah, yeah. So here's the thing. I'm going one level. I do have guitars as well, so I by myself having trouble. The biggest thing with guitars and the violin that I used to play is your rhythm hand is your dominant hand, and your fingering your fretting and fingering hand, which is what I would call the violin equivalent, your is your other hand. It's the hand you use for rhythm. So for the longest time I'm like, wait a minute, when I tap, right? When you're tapping, you're just like, you hear a song when you're tapping, I'm using my rhythm hand. My rhythm hand is my pen hand. And and but if I had to choose, I would still use my right hand for my pen hand because it requires more dexterity. But on an instrument, your dexterity hand doesn't have to move very much. So it's usually the other hand, the less like rigorous hand. So the rhythm hand is the opposite. And it took me a while. Like it took me a long time. If I play Step Mania, right, I would use my right hand. So like if I the any of the arrows that require one hand operation, I would use my right hand. I wouldn't use my left hand. And I know it looks like my hands are flipped, but I mirrored my camera, but I typically use my dominant hand as a rhythm hand. So whenever I play like those like indie games where they have like a hybrid RPG style like Metronomicon, I would use my right hand for the rhythm. I wouldn't use my left hand. So Osu is the rare game where my hands are flipped because both require dexterity and
you fail more often if you can't aim. So I choose to aim with my most most dexterous hand, and then I'm just compensating over and over again. I'm training this way because it's not my aim hand that falls behind. My aim hand has so much more transferable skills because I spend predominantly 90% of my time using my right hand. So if there's any chance of transferable skill and dexterity, it comes from my dominant hand. What is my left hand doing? Don't I know get your loot thoughts. My left hand tends to just not do very much. So like when I go out to disc golf, what is my left hand doing? It's balancing my right hand. That's it. That's that's usually what the left hand is doing. It's rarely ever operating anything. So in the end, the weakest part is left hand. But when you go to play a musical instrument, the thing that has to remember the most mobile things is your is my left hand. You know, when you're fretting and you're having your, you know, when you're forming the chords in violin, you actually generally play single notes, but when you're fingering the finger positions and stuff, it's the left hand, but the left hand isn't mobile. It's dexterous in terms of its flexibility, but often musical instruments does not emphasize speed, as in the dexterity in terms of moving, right? The moving dexterity. And usually you're talking about how flexible and mobile the hand is. So you can do this stuff. Like you can this stuff is great. And in fact, I feel like my right hand is less mobile in terms of its like stretch and mobility than my left hand because of music, but it just doesn't translate well. No, so in fact, I would go as far as saying if I hadn't played musical instruments, I would more likely be able to adapt to Osu a lot more. And I had many years of musical training, like out of sheer hobbyist or keeping up with school, like school performances and stuff. And because of the way I like to write music, right? Yeah, so if you do this, like, if you want to get your forearms burning and you want to know which one's more dexterous, all you have to do is keep doing this really rapidly, and you'll notice that your dominant hand is probably going to stiff up first, generally speaking. Sometimes you might be feeling better or not, but like the one that you use most tend to the movement is if you're a musician, obviously, if you play a musical instrument for whatever reason, the standards just got it would be nice just to have two dexterous hands, you know. That's how I feel about this game, but it's not the case. So I spend most of my time addressing the weakest part of my Osu game. Like I know this some people this makes them sleep, they want to play others, but to me, if I care about something, I go into training mode. It doesn't have to be like fun in the sense of I'm getting entertained, but it's fun to address the weakest part. My left hand is very weak when it comes to strength. The strength component deals with repeated striking, and you just don't strike things. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Um I agree with that statement, but I don't do things because they're fun. Most of the time, I do things because they're practical. So, to those fun is an incentive. When something is interesting, it doesn't have to be fun. For example, so training to get me in the mindset of training when I'm going out and getting to run, I am not telling myself training has to be fun. to be rewarding. The reason why I use that mindset is then I don't have to look for fun in my training to self-improve. So over the last decade, that was my mindset. When I need to do something, I'm not looking to crutch myself as a crutch that it requires to be fun. I can be motivated because it's interesting. I can be motivated because it tells me something about myself. It doesn't have to inherently be fun. With that said, fun is different for different people. And if fun is necessary for you to try and engage in things, you understand yourself far better than I could ever understand you, right? Unless we're the closest possible and you don't see something. That's a lot rarer. But for myself, training is super interesting. It can be as unfun as possible. It could be disappointing, it could be grueling, but I no longer require it to be fun. And that's the hot take on my life, I guess. One of the biggest hot takes that I live, because when you work enough, when you take up a profession, when you become an expert in something, if fun is required for you to do stuff, it will become the biggest barrier for you to becoming a professional, a successful person, a public figure. Those things, if you're looking to require fun to do something, it is going to be one of your lifelong struggles, because you simply can't be successful if you're always self-interested. That's one of the realities. It's not to say you can't find tricks. You can't you can find mindsets. You'll be able to develop mindsets that help you cope with these things. You feel that's different though? I do not feel that's different, but you can feel that's different. There's no distinction between that for me. And therefore, for myself, it's way easier to acquire skills for myself with the mindset that they are not different. So you can choose to think it's differently. But I'm telling you that for me, it is no different. It's how I treat skills. It's how I treat video games. In fact, when I play a video game, I don't play video games first for fun. I play it for interest. So, what can the video game teach me? What can the video game tell me about the developer? When I read your statements, I'm reading for what it's telling me about you, as opposed to what I think you're saying, if you know what I mean. Or what I mean is, I'm not trying to frame what you're saying in my perspective. I try to do as much as I can to think outside myself. But if there is an alternative that's less efficient, but it's better to keep you motivated and consistent, that's absolutely. That's the idea. So I'm sharing my personal anecdote, but I am not specifically encouraging you to change your way of life. I'm using my personal anecdote as a potential form of inspiration if any of it is interesting. I think that would be the most conservative way of healthily having a relationship with, influencers. Unfortunately, that's not the case, right? We know that influencers heavily rely on gaslighting and reality warping in order, whether it's intentional or not, it doesn't stop people from shaping their reality to things that are very provocative, but effectively not really the whole picture. And I don't say that what I'm doing is a secret to life to anyone, but it is what I do. If I do a job, I don't see it as any different than me trying to be better at Osu, which may very much be very disagreeable to the majority of people who play Osu. So here's the catch, right? Here's the catch. I will challenge your notion. If you want to be a streamer, a Twitch streamer, who is more likely to succeed? I'm not saying I want to be a Twitch streamer as a career thing. In fact, probably what I do is the reason why I don't. It's a really weird paradox. However, someone who can understand that the content they make is a requirement of their job, in which they don't see it as any different than their hobby, or someone who sees it as a hobby and continues to try to preserve its hobby, yet they're trying to turn that into a career. Now, I don't know of your exposure to many, successful people's anecdotes or the psychology behind stuff. The most common, one of the more common aspects that are in common with people who successfully navigate hobbies and careers are those who tend to view most things professionally as something that isn't for fun. It isn't for personal preference. It's you do something that you are paid to do. And that's where a lot of Twitch budding, aspiring content creators will eventually have to tackle their own way, whatever method they're going to do, whatever mindset they're going to make that works for them. But the most common pattern is the ability to separate the need to be self-serving versus being a professional. So many content creators start with their passion, their hobby, and eventually have to come to the task of whether to become a professional or continue pursuing their own passions. And to me, it's a lot to me, I don't have to tackle that question anymore. I've already tackled it. My science was my passion. Science is what I loved. How did I graduate with a PhD? I stopped thinking of it as something is my passion, something that I do for fun. I started thinking about it as something that I do because it's interesting, and it's interesting to other people. It's interesting, bigger than myself. And that's kind of how I feel about video games. So I stream because I think what I do may help me develop as a person. And, if someone was interested in it and wanted to talk about it, bonus. If someone thought the game was fun, that's bonus too. But rarely have it's been a while since I said a game is fun. What I do say, though, are statements like Osu is easily one of the most responsive games I've played in so long. So one of those things, you play a bunch of games and you feel that like 300 millisecond of input lag, like that, the input delay. It's not lag, sorry, input delay. And then you go back to Osu, it's like, ah, man, this feels good. Is it fun? I didn't think about it. It just feels really responsive. Is it essential for fun? It's debatable. In contrast, a person I know who's absolutely balls to walls, extraordinarily consistent with this game. His entire outlook deals with the perception of if he likes the thing, if he feels like it's relative to the thing he loves. So effectively, there are very few things that are fun, and that there are very few things that the person likes. I like things that are unfun. You can try to name some of them, right? I actually like my job. I like going to my job because it doesn't have to be fun. I can like it because I can like it because it possibly makes me miserable, but it's rewarding in the end, right? So this is how I feel about training here. Like my fatigue has like tanked. I mean, no, my fatigue has increased after 14 days, and my overall stamina steadily tanked. Right? It's not tanking too far. It's plateauing, so it's normalizing. You get this like curve where it goes straight up, beginner's gain, and then it tanks immediately, and then it stabilizes. Right? So I'm trying to wither out and starve off that slight descent, and then I'm gonna go and rest after 30 days, and then I'll rework my practice schedule. Like instead, I'll rest earlier. I'll take the deload days earlier after like 14 days. See if that works, then readjust again. And that's even more entertaining, I guess, or that's even more interesting to me than getting PP scores. Like it's because it's telling me something about myself that I don't already know by playing the PP system. Right? The PP system certainly gives you a form of metric, but it is a metric and it's a standardized system. It's not dynamic. So when someone is trying to improve and they let the system dictate how they should improve or work towards, at some point you're going to get diminished returns. You're going to get to a point where you start finding out it's not as fun for the people who are self-interest. Well, I reached that point pretty early. It was around like 60K or something. Actually, my original goal was just 100K, which I clearly passed it even though it was unintentional. So, um yeah. So, I like this. So, I can say I like Osu. I like Osu a lot. Not because it's fun. Uh, okay, it is because it's fun, but fun is like number 15 or something. I have turned Osu into a quality of life for me. Like one of my biggest fears in my life is to lose capacity of my senses. So one of them would be the use of my hands, the loss of dexterity in my hands. Your hands are like your feet and your ears and your nose and your vision. These are things, and now I get on after my mile run outside. This is my regiment. It's keeping me healthy. It's making my hands move, which, yes, it doesn't define stuff, doesn't translate, but the movement does. The nice, uh, nice workout you get. And it might seem trivial and unimportant than getting PP scores, but for me, it's this is kind of ironic or in a way unexpected, but I would challenge the other people that I have a perspective about Osu as a lifestyle than many players who think their career is based on this game. I legitimately choose Osu as a platform to structure maintaining my hand dexterity. I could have chosen something else. I could have chosen knitting. I could have crochet. I could have decided to buy a canvas and actually literally paint something. But instead, I choose Osu to help my digital artwork, my hand-eye coordination with a pen, and I keep my left hand active, even though it's legitimately the laziest hand part of my body that actually needs to do something. So kudos. And it's kind of weird, but my left forearm is bigger than my right forearm now. So what I do at the end of the day is I dead hang. I like after my training, I do like maximum dead hangs just to like hope to not get it to imbalance, because imbalance really impacts when you're doing uh calisthenics. Calisthenics tend to, like, if you start leaning towards one way and another way, it kind of carries over at some point. As it does feel like if you grind salmon a lot. Yeah, yeah. Also use that. Well, uh it's a workout for something. And we have to remember that your brain is something that you work out as well. It's a mentality. And I structure so many things I like. I like Yes, I would go with that, where I structure many things that I've come to accustom to or familiar with as a form to invest forward. Rarely do I abandon something because it's no longer relevant to my life. It would mean I would devalue something that I've done. So there are things that people would forget because they never use it, but it's the process that stays with you forever. So, or you can choose to have the process stay with you. Like a lot of times it's about what you learn in school. Certainly, the semantic knowledge you could go through the rest of your life probably consistently avoiding those semantic knowledge that you may or may not want to use anymore. However, the process, the ache, the failures, the things you use to get to learn those semantic knowledge, you can choose to keep that forever. What I'm doing now, if I do another thing, I'm going to have a structure like this. This structure that I'm doing now for Osu comes from my 10 years of physical training. It doesn't come from willy-nilly, like, hey, I'm decent at Osu. Here's what I think after playing Osu is the way mechanics and biomechanics work. No, it's everything. It's everything I learned about biomechanics and structuring my fitness for myself up to this point. So I'm applying my previous experiences, all my experience, and whatever I learn here will carry forward as well. So I'm maximizing my time, even in failure, even in the original goal. I still can distill enough data and value from it that I might learn something about myself that wasn't even part of the goal, which I am most definitely learning a few pitfalls and a few like other things I have to take care of, which is uh probably my middle finger dexterity is a problem on my left hand. But we'll see if that's related to. Well, I'm curious if the difference between my two fingers have something to do with uh the fretting on a guitar, cuz like there's, you know how bar chords, right, on a guitar. For me, bar chords are require a really big gait because I don't have girthy hands. Surface area is not on my side. I have very, very, very slender hands. So surface area, bar chords, the pointer finger. Oh my gosh, the pointer finger hurts so much. So a lot of times I default to trying to uh work around the bar chords using my middle finger. And without a doubt, it's my middle finger is far stronger in Osu, and it could just be pain tolerance from the build endurance. Oh yeah, for sure. But here's the thing. I have short digits too. I also have short digits. The closest you can get to across the board is laying it flat. If you tilt it, the tip of your finger is going to curl upward. But it's not going to hit the last string. What I do, I just changed the position. I just switched to like third position. So, or I tend to just avoid the bar chord in general. But um I compensate in that way most of the time. I mean, you could uh you could capo up and then switch the chords accordingly. That's usually how I compensate it. But you're making an assumption that there's no physical limit, like there's no other things that could possibly prevent someone from reaching across the chords. But yes, I agree. Putting the finger down hurts a lot. You don't play chords much? Really? Huh. Interesting. Are you a fingerstyle person? Yeah. Do you prefer fingerstyle or just like fine picking? I started with fingerstyle too, but then at some point I needed something. You know how when singers needed to warm up, they practice scales? Well, in guitar, I developed a habit where if I had to warm up, I just play chords. But that's just it. It's kind of like this. When you warm up, you just alternate tapping. Um, so I've integrated that into me. So the foundations that I do most of the time to warm up is chord chord stuff. But I do predominantly finger pick. Literally, I prefer my fingers. This is pretty much just something I had to learn. Oh, okay. Yeah, you that kind of checks out. Uh, that checks out quite a lot, especially how you approach Osu as well. Um, I'm a fundamentalist, so I spend most of my time deconstructing. I'm not a top down kind of person, so I don't feel things out a lot of times. I mean, I'm quite literally not a Philly kind of fillers kind of person. So I tend to deconstruct most. I start with foundations, and those foundations continue to be the linchpin, the centerpiece of my skills. So one great one great example is critical thinking. When you're critical thinking slash problem solving, if you take a top down approach, it's far less consistent than taking a foundational bottom up approach. So um, you can still be relatively successful if your intuition compensates for the complexity of something. Um, it's a very we're kind of at opposite ends here in most cases. So it does explain a lot. It does check out with how you approach Osu as well. Like your Osu approach to progress is very top down. And my approach obviously it's bottom up. So I start with fundamentals and I continue to build on fundamentals. It's and it doesn't start immediately though. So like I sample the thing, right? I watch other people, like I see where the attraction is, and then I would say my favorite default is to deconstruct the thing, deconstruct whatever it is that other people are interested in. Um, it gives me access to understanding something that is intuitive for others. I don't typically rely on my intuition, just a form of personality. I'm a very analytical person, I guess. Wow, that's probably the first time I've said that, like, verbally in decades. But generally speaking, um, deconstructing is what I do because I like teaching. I like teaching people. And without deconstruction, you cannot, it's difficult to appeal to individual or explain something to individual if you're always behaving at the top complexity. So when someone asks you, you know, how do you do this thing if you have a problem with it? You're someone who uh, is top down. At the top of complexity, there are very few solutions. It's difficult to address specific elements without separating them first and seeing how it applies to you in order to offer advice. It's a different perspective, obviously. And it's not, and there are cons, right? The bottom to top approach is far less efficient. My approach to this thing is far less efficient. Do I see that as a con? You may wonder. I don't, because it just means I have more time to occupy my thoughts about it. It is proportional, I would say. So while it is less efficient for sure, like in magnitude, it would take way more time to take the bottom to top approach. But when I can, I would say for me, subjectively, the reward is proportional to the time invested. So I can do things without being a 2-digit, for example. I can appreciate Osu at a level that compensates for whatever the glass ceiling is that keeps me from it. So if I were be able to define Osu in its foundational aspects, I've done that analysis. Even though when all of it is placed together in its final complexity, I cannot adhere to that. I cannot perform like that. But I can effectively appreciate enough of what other extraordinary people do. And that is the goal. Learning is that process, in my opinion. But it also, I am a product of the school system that the United States have. And as a result, I adhere to it because it reflects my personality quite a bit, which is to learn the foundations and go up. I totally get when you can intuit stuff. Intuition is a very powerful thing. And most of, the talented players underestimate how talented they are. Because talent, in my opinion, is proportional to the amount of reliance they have on their intuition. It doesn't mean it has to be accurate. Talent tends to be a measure of how one doesn't have to go through the process of deconstruction. That intuition is something I do not have. Or I choose not to utilize intuition. So I'm not, if I want to understand Osu, rarely am I going to go rely on feeling, I guess. But some peeps, oh, at the privilege, I guess, the privilege to meet, you just have to feel the circles. What more can I say? Just feel the circles. Right, fingerstyle is like the GOAT, in my opinion, for guitar. And going all the way back to your last comment, I really like fingerstyle, especially when you start working on my when I warm up for fingerstyle, I do the 5-finger approach, right? instead of doing the pick thing, I enjoy doing the 1 1 the 1 1 2 3 4 5 approach on like using your fingers. The only downside is I like cutting my nails, right? I like cutting my nails, so I haven't really invested in. I already mentioned that my fingers are like not girthy enough. I'm still looking for that ideal set of like finger picks, and not the guitar picks, but the actual literal finger picks, like thumb and stuff. They don't really. It's difficult to find something to fit slender hands, but I guess you can have like the metal ones where you like heat them and bend them in or something. But I've yet to find my desired nails, like finger picks. That's a long digression, but I really like talking about it. Yeah, my nails, so it's difficult to do other things with long nails, right? So you either yeah, so oh, you use a pick? That's fair. I am very terrible with a pick. I still have very limited use for pick. Yeah, the getting used to being next, like next, imagining yourself being next to the string and not on the string. It's pretty fun. But you can also get usually I use the other 3 fingers. I put a pick on the other 3 fingers. Sometimes I do the 1 1 1 2 3 4. So I end up not using my pinky. I use 4 fingers to do the finger style. In typical Osu fashion, just play more, yeah. In typical intuitive fashion, play more. Yes. Intuitive fashion. Did I finish today though? Did I finish? Let's see how do I feel here? See, this is when you go cold, right? Yeah. I am finished. Good. I just wanted to feel if I can feel here in 15 seconds, which I can. So I stop. I stop when I can feel that. But we're done with our session today. Are you gonna do your session soon? In the near future? Whenever like I'm almost done with practice, I tend to just rant about things related to what my current thoughts are. What did I learn today? I'm still maintaining my plateau, so that's good. I'm not growing any weaker. That's reassuring. I don't like my keypad. It would be nice if it was lower. Is this a good position though? I'm trying to figure out if my hands are in the same place. Maybe I don't turn my keyboard. Okay. Alright.